Good morning to everyone watching. Let's talk directly about what's happening with the Australian age pension right now. The government has just made a decision that's sending ripples through retirement communities all across the country. This change affects how much seniors receive, how their payments are calculated, and even who qualifies under the new 2025 rules. Many pensioners are waking up to headlines about new assessments, income tests, and thresholds being adjusted, and they're wondering what this means for their daily life. Today, we'll walk through everything clearly, step by step, so you can understand exactly what's changing, what remains the same, and what you can do to make sure you're not missing out on your rightful benefits. The truth is, the Australian government reviews pension rules regularly to keep up with cost of living pressures, inflation, and workforce participation trends. But the 2025 reform package is different. It's part of a larger effort to rebalance the budget while still offering support to older Australians. The Treasury and Services Australia have both confirmed that starting in early 2025, new indexing methods, updated means testing arrangements, and several transitional measures will begin to roll out. This means every pensioner, whether they receive a full or part pension, will notice some kind of difference in their payments by mid-year. The intention is to modernise the system, but for many, it feels like another challenge added to an already tight situation. Before we go into the deeper details, it's important to understand the background of this decision. The government has faced mounting pressure due to rising costs in healthcare, energy, and rent assistance. The budget papers showed that pension expenditure had grown faster than forecast, largely because of population aging and the ongoing cost of living adjustments. In response, the government held a review that recommended making several adjustments, some beneficial, some more restrictive. These include an updated assets test threshold, a recalibration of the deeming rates used to calculate income from savings and investments, and a reassessment of supplementary benefits like energy rebates and rent assistance. Now, let's talk about what pensioners will actually see in their bank accounts. Starting in March 2025, the first wave of recalculated payments will begin. According to government estimates, the maximum base rate for singles will receive a modest upward adjustment to reflect the September 2024 Consumer Price Index, but this increase will be partially offset for those whose assets or income exceed the new test limits. Couples on the full pension may see a similar proportional change, though the combined thresholds are slightly higher to accommodate shared living costs. Essentially, those with modest savings and limited investments will benefit the most from the uplift, while retirees with larger super balances or property investments could see smaller increases, or in some cases, temporary freezes on their indexation. Healthcare expenses are another concern directly tied to the pension reform. The new policy links some supplementary health concessions to the updated income test. This means that certain pensioners could lose their eligibility for discounted prescription medicine or doctor visits if their assessable income rises under the new deeming calculations. For people managing chronic conditions, this change could feel like a penalty for simply having small savings. The government has promised that no existing pensioner concession cardholder will be cut off abruptly, but transitional arrangements can still lead to confusion and temporary lapses in benefits if documentation isn't updated promptly. Rural pensioners have raised additional concerns. The cost of travel, higher food prices, and limited access to affordable housing all make life outside major cities more expensive. Yet the base rate of the age pension does not differentiate between metropolitan and regional areas. This issue was brought up repeatedly during the consultation phase of the 2025 reforms, but the final decision did not include a location-based supplement. Instead, the government emphasized expanding access to digital services to make it easier for rural pensioners to manage their benefits online. Critics argue that digital access doesn't help those struggling with physical costs, especially older Australians who may not be comfortable with technology. One bright spot in the 2025 update is the plan to expand financial counselling services for seniors. The Department of Social Services will partner with community organisations to offer free sessions where pensioners can get help understanding the new rules, calculating their entitlements, and budgeting more effectively. This initiative acknowledges that the system can be complex and that many older Australians prefer face-to-face explanations rather than online calculators. These services will begin rolling out in March and April of 2025, with priority given to regions that have large populations of retirees. As this reform continues to make headlines, public reaction remains divided. Some pensioners appreciate that the government is at least acknowledging their struggles and providing moderate increases. Others feel betrayed, believing that the reforms prioritize fiscal savings over people's well-being. Social media and community centres have become platforms for heated discussions. Seniors are sharing their payment letters, comparing rates, and helping each other decode the new tables. Many say that what they want most is stability, a predictable income they can rely on each fortnight without worrying about shifting rules every few years. Let's now look at the second half of the reform story, how the 2025 pension rules will actually roll out, what transitional protections exist, and what experts are advising seniors to do. The rollout begins officially in March 2025 with the new indexation rate applied to the base pension. This adjustment will automatically appear in payment summaries. The next major phase happens in July 2025, when the merged pension supplement comes into effect and the updated assets and income thresholds become law. Services Australia will send personalised letters before this happens, explaining how the changes apply to each individual case. Pensioners who receive direct deposit into their bank accounts will see the updated amounts in their regular payment cycle, usually on a Thursday or Friday depending on their reporting schedule. The income test threshold for singles is expected to rise slightly to around $212 per fortnight, while couples will see an increase to roughly $376 combined. The assets test threshold will also adjust to account for inflation, but the rate of increase will be smaller than in 2024. This means people with significant savings or property may not see much benefit. On the other hand, those with limited financial resources could see a small but meaningful boost. The government says the purpose of this structure is to target support where it's needed most, though critics say it still creates disincentives for people to save for retirement. One of the most technical but impactful adjustments involves the deeming rate changes. These rates are used to estimate how much income a pensioner earns from their savings, regardless of the actual interest they receive. The current low deeming rates have been in place since the pandemic, but starting in 2025, they will rise to reflect improved economic conditions. The lower deeming rate will move from 0.25% to 0.75%, while the upper rate will climb from 2.25% to around 3%. This shift might not sound dramatic, but it can reduce payments for anyone with more than a few $1,000s in savings. For example, a single pensioner with $60,000 in the bank could lose around $10 to $15 per fortnight because of this change. Financial advisors are urging seniors to review where their money is held. Keeping funds in low-interest accounts may no longer make sense if the government assumes you're earning a higher rate than you actually are. Some advisors suggest considering term deposits or regulated investment options to align real returns with the deeming estimates. However, any investment changes should be approached carefully and ideally discussed with a qualified advisor, especially given the risk of scams targeting pensioners during reform periods. A new communication campaign will accompany the rollout, aimed at explaining the reforms through community radio, newspapers, and local events. Services Australia staff will also visit regional centres to provide in-person guidance. This outreach recognises that not everyone has internet access or confidence using digital portals. Seniors will be encouraged to bring along identification and current statements if they wish to check their eligibility in person. This kind of support is designed to prevent confusion or misinformation spreading, especially among vulnerable individuals who might misinterpret letters or media reports. Let's also discuss taxation interactions. While age pension payments themselves remain tax-free for most recipients, some changes to thresholds can indirectly affect those who also receive income from part-time work or superannuation drawdowns. The work bonus, which allows pensioners to earn up to a certain amount without affecting their payment, will stay in place through 2025. However, the government is reviewing whether to make the recent temporary $4,000 boost to the work bonus permanent. That decision is expected by mid-year. If the bonus becomes permanent, it would give seniors greater flexibility to supplement their income without penalty, supporting older Australians who wish to remain in the workforce. Another area drawing attention is housing support. The rent assistance increase is welcome news, but experts note that it still doesn't match the scale of rent inflation. Average capital city rents have risen more than 8% year on year, far exceeding the additional $19 fortnightly support. Pensioners living in aged care facilities will also see adjustments to the way accommodation payments are treated under the assets test. The goal is to avoid double-counting home values and refundable deposits, but the rules are complex and may require professional clarification for those entering care in 2025. Regional councils are preparing for increased demand at community centres as seniors seek help understanding the changes. Volunteer networks have already started training sessions to ensure they can answer common questions. It's a community-wide effort to make sure no one is left behind. The government's outreach plan emphasises inclusion, but it's ultimately up to individuals to stay informed. Keeping copies of letters, payment summaries, and financial records will make it easier to track how these updates affect you personally. Economists see the reform as part of a larger story about intergenerational fairness. Younger taxpayers contribute to the system that supports retirees, and with the number of pensioners rising each year, the balance between benefits and affordability becomes more delicate. The government argues that adjusting thresholds and deeming rates ensures the system remains sustainable for decades to come. But for seniors living on fixed incomes, even a small reduction feels deeply personal. It's not just about numbers, it's about security, dignity, and independence. As reactions pour in, public debate continues. Advocacy groups are pushing for additional measures, including automatic rent reviews, healthcare cost relief, and a national energy allowance specifically for low-income pensioners. They argue that Australia's strong economy should allow for more generous social spending. Government officials counter that fiscal restraint is necessary to avoid long-term debt that could undermine the very programs retirees depend on. It's a fine line to walk, and one that will likely remain controversial well beyond 2025. For now, the most important step every senior can take is to stay alert and proactive. Double-check your payment summaries, confirm your details with Services Australia, and reach out to support networks if anything seems unclear. Many of these changes will happen automatically, but human oversight still matters. The government has acknowledged that during past adjustments, administrative errors occasionally caused underpayments or overpayments. Fixing these issues early prevents headaches later. Beyond the numbers, there's an emotional dimension to all of this. The age pension isn't just a payment, it's recognition of a lifetime of contribution. Seniors have built this country through decades of hard work, and it's only fair they receive stability in return. That's why the phrase "seniors react" in the title of today's discussion carries weight. The reaction isn't just about disappointment or approval, it's about being heard. Pensioners are speaking up, sharing their stories, and reminding policymakers that reforms must balance budgets without breaking trust. In communities across the nation, seniors clubs, local RSL branches, and neighborhood associations are hosting information days about the new rules. These gatherings are more than educational, they're moments of solidarity. Pensioners exchange tips on managing budgets, navigating online portals, and understanding payment notices. They encourage one another not to panic, emphasizing that small changes in fortnightly amounts don't erase the value of collective support. Staying informed together has become a form of empowerment. The 2025 rules also introduce a longer-term vision. The Sustainable Retirement Framework outlines gradual steps toward integrating the age pension with superannuation reforms. By 2030, the goal is for superannuation to provide a higher share of retirement income, with the age pension serving as a safety net rather than a primary income source. While this might make sense on paper, it's concerning for current retirees who rely heavily on the pension. Many fear that over time, eligibility could tighten even further. Policymakers have tried to assure them that the pension will remain a cornerstone of retirement security, but history shows that once rules tighten, they rarely loosen again. As we move deeper into 2025, another adjustment is expected in September. This will mark the second indexation round of the year, reflecting mid-year inflation and wage data. Depending on economic conditions, this could lead to another small increase, perhaps $12 to $20 per fortnight for singles and a slightly higher combined figure for couples. It may not seem like much, but every increase matters, especially when living costs show no sign of slowing. Seniors have long called for indexation that tracks the higher of wage growth or inflation rather than a simple average, and the government has hinted that this method could be reviewed in 2026. The reforms also touch on digital access and security. With more pensioners using online services, there's an emphasis on protecting against scams and fraud. Services Australia has introduced new verification steps for online logins, and pensioners are encouraged to use strong passwords and enable extra security checks. While these updates aim to improve safety, they've also created frustration among older Australians who find digital systems confusing. To help, local libraries and community centres are offering digital literacy workshops where seniors can learn to manage their online accounts safely and confidently. As all these details unfold, the underlying message remains clear. Change is here, and it's significant. For some, it will bring a little more money and flexibility. For others, it may introduce new complications or reduced payments. But understanding the system gives you control. Knowing when and how changes occur means you can plan your finances better, avoid surprises, and seek help early if something doesn't add up.